Hey guys, it's your girl Fey.
And I'm Dolapo.
And this is Terminal 234.
Yes. Welcome, guys. It's been so long.
Yeah, welcome back. It's season 4.
Welcome back.
Can you believe we made it this far?
Can I believe it? Yes, I can believe it. What you mean? We did it.
I guess.
It's
okay,
us. Of course we made it this far. Like, why wouldn't we?
That's one way of looking at it. But I guess, let's just get into it. Like, how have you been since we left off, since the end of season 3? What's up?
I've been good, I think at the end of season 3, I feel like I was kind of sad because Corona was keeping us inside and there was no joy
and you're an
or anything in
extrovert
the
at
life.
heart.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
He's a socialite,
whatever.
Just a little bit.
It's nice to go outside your house every once in a while. So I think that, I'm much better now because outside is a little open, summertime,
That's good.
Getting fly, going outside.
I don't know. For me, I feel like it's the opposite. I was
Really?
thriving. I was feeling good all through quarantine.
Yeah.
And then I woke up on the wrong side of July or something, and I'm just ugh. I'm not feeling it. I don't know why, but
it's nice
this
right now.
podcast,
that's the time. Yeah.
I know, but this podcast is gonna, pick me back up. I feel I love doing this thing, so
yeah.
I'm sure July will end a lot better.
I feel like it was a really long break, low key.
It does feel like a really long break.
Yeah, it has been a long break.
Yeah,
I don't remember how to use a microphone. Am I speaking to the right part? Should I speak here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, the end of season 3 was just so different than the beginning of season 4 in the sense that, like you said, we were literally stuck inside, no end in sight. And now, it feels like a little bit of normalcy is happening. I mean, I still came here with a mask in hand, but there's still a semblance of
Faye's the person wearing a mask inside someone's house.
That's
you're
a
in the
lie.
house.
He knows damn well I did not wear a mask.
She only took off the mask for the camera. She's like, I'm going to be recorded.
He's lying to you. But this is definitely a whole different vibe than the second half of season 3, but I'm feeling it. We actually have a new theme in tow. I know we told you guys at the end of season 3 that we had a theme in mind, aka travel. Yeah. And that didn't work out very well.
It didn't. You could never tell that was a theme until unless you listen to the first couple of episodes, you're like, I kind of see it. But
and we kind of just went off the rails because
there was too much stuff happening.
Yeah, it just couldn't be done. But this time around, we chose a theme that I think is Corona proof. I think is just pretty pristine. It applies no matter what. There's no chance that this is gonna get fucked up, but who knows? knowing the world and where we were, we can't speak too soon. But this year we're gonna do, or do we want to make them guess again? No, right? I think
I like the idea of letting people know what the theme is because it will basically allow you to know what kinds of topics we're going to be talking about. Yeah. And I think once we say it's going to be pretty obvious anyway.
I love how I said this year as if 2020 is over. I want it to be over so bad that I'm like, this year, no, we're still in the same year. But this time around, our theme is wellness.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. I like it a lot. What do you think about it?
Well, you like it a lot. Aren't you the one that suggested it?
Yeah, I like it a lot because I
suggest something like, I really like my idea. My idea is really good, right? What do you think about my idea? Well, I like your idea as well. That's why we're doing it. Yeah. So I'm excited. One of the other things we've been doing, or we're going to try to do more, is our IG live stuff. So I guess since we're talking about all the things we did on the break, we did our town hall. Yeah. Which is pretty good. A lot of people tuned in.
I loved it.
It was very therapeutic, which fits right into our wellness theme. And then the most recent IG live we did was on the whole Will and Jada thing. Yeah. Right?
Got spicy.
Yeah. So I guess if you live under a rock or, you just don't pay attention to all the gossip because you're above it, you're like, what is all this nonsense? Basically, there's been rumors for years that Jada had some kind of sexual intimate relationship with August Alsina, who is...
Before that rumor even started, though, there was already rumors that Will and Jada had an open relationship.
No, definitely.
Of sorts. Yep. Before the whole August Alsina rumor came into the picture. But you're right to bring that up.
Yeah. So there was, rumors, and he basically over the last year or two had done everything in his power to let us know without actually saying her name and putting it in black and white. But basically he's been telling us. But recently he did an interview with Angela Yee, and he basically was like, I was in love. I don't know if he said he was in love with her. Let me not misquote him.
No, he did.
Okay, good.
For you guys out there, Dolapo did not watch the interview. No. I did. Which brings me to, did you even watch the Facebook Red Table Talk with Will and Jada or no?
No. But I heard some clips.
Okay. Anyway, continue with the backstory.
So basically, yeah, he just came out and told the world that, like, yes, he did in fact have a relationship with her, and it didn't end well. Just like the emotional whatever. So we had a whole IG live thing about it. Mm-hmm. It was very interesting. Mm-hmm. I want to say it's on our IGTV, but I don't. Yeah, it is. Okay, so you can check that out.
Look how little Dolapo knows about
social media. I just don't know. I don't know if it has time limit as well, but you should definitely check that out if you haven't. Yeah. Because we go into the backstory, so let's not do that now.
And there will be more of that to come in terms of IG Live. So stay tuned on our socials to find out more as to when you can tune in and what we'll be talking about. Mm-hmm. But no, to dive in more, I want to say that IG Live was even more interesting because by the end of it, we were talking about our viewpoints on open relationships and whatnot. And leading up to that, you made a very salient point about open relationships being a solution to a problem.
I remember that.
You know, that there's symptoms of an issue in a relationship, and the open relationship is kind of there to fix it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't necessarily agree. I still don't agree. But after watching the Facebook Live, I do think there's some credence to what you mentioned in the Will and Jada situation, because when they were describing what happened with August, they basically said it was during a time when Will and Jada had separated, where they thought they were no longer going to be together. They really thought they were done with each other for good. Yeah. Both parties did, especially Will. It sounded like Will especially was like over it. And
really, I thought I heard the opposite. I thought I heard that Jada was the one that was kind of like, yeah, we're never getting back together. And Will was kind of like, no, like, we'll probably get back together.
No. Okay. When I watched it, at least, that's not how it came off. He was like, I basically kicked you to the curb. I did done with you. I did hear him say that, yeah. And Jada was like, yeah, you were done with me. Yeah. And Jada basically said she got into an entanglement with August Alsina in order to kind of fix what was broken inside of her. Like, to fix her traumas. Yeah. To fix her issues. And it basically ended because she was done with it. She broke up with August, it seems like, and went back to Will. So it ended on a bad note. And August and her have not spoken since they broke up. So she's like, whoa, this came out of left field for me, because I thought we were all done with this. Like, even Will was like, yeah, this is so old to me. And Jada echoed those sentiments. Like, I thought we were finished with this situation, and August decided to bring it back up. But Jada was very clear to say it clearly has a mountain of feelings and emotions there for August, and she was sensitive to that. And she never really blamed him. She actually didn't really seem scorned by it. She's like, you know what? It is what it is. He felt like he needed to say something. He wanted to make it clear that I'm not a homewrecker, which in fact he's not. And which I think at least for me, I kind of figured.
I don't think that's why I always had an issue with him. Yeah. Not with him, let me not say, but with him, like, coming out to defend himself, because I think the question was like, who is calling you a homewrecker? It seemed like there wasn't that much out there.
There were a lot
of people. There's always people that's going to say something, but it seemed to me like, of course, maybe I'm wrong. Say that again? It wasn't a big deal enough for him to come. Yeah, like, it seemed like people were not really, like, attacking him. Like, it just... But we never know because we're not in his shoes. Yeah. Right? And we always look at things from our perspective. Because I didn't judge him like that. Maybe I just kind of assumed that a lot of people weren't thinking like that. Of course, we're going to
think that's how everybody was thinking. Yeah. Because we were thinking like that. But in his shoes, as the public figure, he's seen the gamut of opinions. And then on top of that, usually people find negative opinions more, like, hard-hitting than the rest of the world. Yeah. And their opinions. So, I mean... All that to say, I think in this case, you were somewhat right. Although I want to still say, I'm not sold on the idea that Will and Jada do not have an unorthodox arrangement. Yeah. I don't know if that involves sexual intimacy with other people or not. I can't say, obviously. But either way, I still wouldn't say that, like, them choosing whatever form of a relationship is because they're trying to fix a broken relationship. I think it's them evolving as people and deciding this is better for us. A life partnership, whatever that means for them, is better for us than whatever we were in before. The August thing is just a hiccup or, a little blimp in the road. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, do you have any other thoughts on this situation?
No, I mean, guys, go check out the IG IGTV. Yeah, if you want see all more, the points I made, and you'd be like, damn, he said it all already. Like, but no, I mean, I think that I thought they were always going to come on and say something. Yeah. It was just a matter of what format they would use and how they would do it. I know it was like a 13-minute video. I think they did what they had to do in terms of they had to address it because they are public figures and they are in the public facing. Like, you know, she has her show. Like, I think if she didn't have that show, she probably wouldn't have to address it. But if you're always, like, if you're going to have people come on there to talk about themselves, you can't not address this whole big thing about you. Yeah. Because I know I had a couple of friends that asked me, like, yeah, like, why did they have to say anything? Like, whose business is it?
Because they definitely said I feel like during the video that, we normally wouldn't, like, we know them not to talk about their private lives, at least in this capacity ever. And they're like, but in this particular instance, the entire world was looking at them for some words. And there was a lot being said on their behalves that they were like, nah, we got to step in and just like clear the shit up because there's not a clear picture right now. And I don't like the narrative that's being painted by any sides. So I think it was worthwhile. Yeah, no, I think it was what was always going to happen. I wasn't really surprised by much. I know I heard people say like, oh, Will Smith, like, you know, like, they felt bad for him or like he kind of seemed like, I don't know, it's just all your perspective. But to me, I'm like, he was always just going to support his wife. Like, even if stuff is not that great on this topic, he has no choice. Like, he has to. Yes, Dolapo, he was always going to support his wife because he's Will Smith. And that's what we've grown to understand him to be, that type of man. But there's a lot of men out there who wouldn't do what he did. No. Understand when I say that he had to support his wife, I don't mean it in the sense of like, what actually happened. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like, coming out, sitting next to her, like, because a lot of it wasn't like, oh, like, it was like, oh, Jada shit, he had to come there and kind of like help her and like, you know, hold her hand through it. And I'm saying like a lot of men wouldn't have done it, and I think Will is a greater man for doing it, and I love that he did it. I agree or
disagree. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I know that as a celebrity, like, it's a PR thing. Like, there was no way that there's no way that any PR firm is gonna let her go out and stay by herself. Like, literally, if as long as he's her husband, he had to do it. Of course, he could have done it maybe less willingly, but like, he had to do it. Like, it's literally when Tiger Woods did this whole thing. Like, it's just what happens. Like, you always you need that support.
We'll agree to disagree on this one in the sense that there are a lot of men out there, in my opinion, that wouldn't have stood beside his woman, talk about infidelity or whatever form of infidelity that was next to her. There's a lot of male egos that might have not allowed that. Of course, I'm not saying that it was easy, I think it was or that it was easy for a lot of people. No, I agree with that. Yeah. I'm just saying that, you know, give some men some credit. Like, I think a lot of men would have done it. And also, like, you're right. Maybe not. Let's not focus on the men that wouldn't have done it. Let's focus on the men that do it. And it's the public facing thing.
It's like, you know, you have to do it. If you're in front of cameras, you do things that maybe you really wouldn't want to do. Another major thing that happened. If you're in, I want to say anywhere on the internet, you've probably seen this, but not my guy, I don't know him, but Mr. Hushpuppi.
Which, side note, I hate Hushpuppies, the food.
I don't even know what Hushpuppi is. Like, it wasn't until last week that I realized that Hushpuppi is an actual, like, word, that he didn't just make it up. No. But yeah, Mr. Hushpuppi on Instagram and everywhere was arrested. I believe he's in the detention of FBI right now in Chicago somewhere. Him and along with this other guy, I forget his name, Mr. Woodbury. Mm-hmm. Basically, most people know them for being like really flashy people on Instagram that have mad money. They were both living in Dubai, basically, and nobody knows how they have their money. We just know that they have mad bread.
You can put 2 and 2 together, though.
Well, a lot of people basically they've been alleged to be involved in scamming, fraud, 419, the whole thing. People know them as that's what they do. Yeah. I don't know that it's proof. You know, it's kind of like,
it's not proof. It's just that, like, if you follow them, follow their lifestyles, follow the paper trail, it kind of is something that you could have put 2 and 2 together. That's just what it is. And all this to say, his whole operation isn't on the hush hush, no pun intended, any longer, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, actually, like, again, amongst the people that know of him, that's what everyone thinks of him, I guess, is the point. Yeah. We're not going to say he's guilty or not, because I know police will find out and let us know. But of course, he was arrested. He recently went to court. His lawyer, interesting point that his lawyer brought up was, how did he end up in the custody of America? Because there are no extradition laws between the United Arab Emirates and the United States. So he actually could not be extradited, even though the UAE on Facebook, like a minister or something, had actually stated that, oh yeah, we extradited him. And it's like, well, you can't extradite him. And then on top of that, like the U.S. Attorney General, whoever it is, they said that he was expelled from the United Arab Emirates. But if he was expelled, he should have been sent to Nigeria. Yeah. And basically, it doesn't make 100% sense of how he ended up in the custody of the FBI.
law enforcement or the criminal justice system, whatever it is all a construct. They can do whatever the hell they want. That's in general, all of this means. Definitely, so, I agree. I basically say that to say he ended up in the States because that's what they wanted. And who cares about extradition treaties and expulsions and whatever the hell. They're like, we want him in the States. We're going to make it happen. Dubai was cooperative and the rest is history. Yep.
It's kind of like how we talked about with like R. Kelly and other people where it's like, if you do enough stuff, like if they want to get you, they'll find a way. Get you. It doesn't like it's Epstein not going to be by, it's not going to be by the letter of the law, but they'll find a way to get you. But I do think it's interesting that his lawyers kind of, to me, seems like come out the gates like swinging, and it's like,
it's like, oh, you want to play ball? I got you.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. People like, if you have money, you're gonna be able to get a good lawyer and put up a defense of sorts. So it should be interesting. It's just we'll see what happens. I don't know if it's there's been a lot of talk about should people be celebrating that he was arrested? Should people be sad? I'm not gonna get into all that, comment. But yeah, I think, if he did what they said he did, then, what's coming is coming, and I don't feel bad about it. I'm not necessarily gonna celebrate like, yes, but it is what happens naturally.
Yeah.
All right. Are you ready for another topic? It's kind of sad.
Yeah, let's talk about this last one.
So this is I feel like I'm the one introducing all the things. Like, why don't you introduce this one? This is your person. You probably know more about this than me.
No, it's just easier when you do the like heavy lifting and I just get to talk.
Oh, really?
But it's okay. I'll tee this one up. So unfortunately this past week, I think it was Wednesday, Naya Rivera, who's best known for her role on Glee. Did you ever watch Glee back then? You don't look like the type that would
like, am I watching Glee?
Well, I did as a little, like, I don't even know how old I was back then. Probably like 15-year-old. I definitely watched Glee.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I know I was like in high school at least. Okay. I didn't finish it, sad to say, but that's all besides the point. Basically, she's best known for her role in Glee. You might also know her as Big Sean's ex-girlfriend / fiance, actually.
Her brother's a football player at some point.
Her brother's a football player. So anyway, this past week, like I mentioned on Wednesday, her and her son went out on a boating trip. I wouldn't even call it a boating trip, just a boating a day out. Like they were only going to be out for about 3 hours apparently. And on this particular Wednesday, she has disappeared. I hate to say it, but she's presumed dead.
She is.
Because her son was found alone on the boat. Her son is only 4 years old, I believe. He was found alone on the boat, and he even mentioned to police that, hey, my mom jumped into the water and never came back. So as far as the police is concerned, she suffered from an accidental drowning. There's a lot of other conjecture going around about what happened, whatever. We don't know. There's no facts to lead to foul play or anything of the sort, so there's not really much of a point leading people's attention there or energy there. But yeah, she's presumed dead after an accidental drowning. Fortunately, her son was found safe and sound on the boat with his life jacket on.
He was like asleep when they found him.
He was asleep when they found him. Yeah. But yeah, it's just a sad situation.
It is.
It just feels so eerie, especially because of actually the Glee cast. They've had a lot of unfortunate events happen in recent years, ever since the show kind of was winding down / ended. So people are just like, oh my god, another cast member that's like met at like, such a sad unfortunate end. So I mean, prayers up. Hopefully she's found. People are still obviously hoping that she's found safe and sound. So I add to that, but either way, hopefully her family gains some sort of closure and can, move on with the grief and trauma that this is going to obviously bring.
Yeah, no, it's very sad. Like you said, we don't know anything. And sometimes the most dangerous thing is to guess, especially now because it's early. We just don't know. And ultimately, all that matters is that we don't know where she is. And right now, it doesn't seem like she's okay.
Yeah.
But I am happy that her son is okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because only God knows what exactly was about to happen. Only God knows how he ended up being okay on that boat by himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, good. Thank God that he was found and he's okay. And I can only imagine what it would be like growing up, knowing whatever happened as him, as that boy. I was trying to think yesterday, like maybe he's young enough that like he won't ever really completely remember, but
at the same time,
unfortunately, she was a celebrity, so it's going to be so much information about it.
And he's old enough that I think some of your earliest memories are formed around this particular age, and when it's compounded with a traumatic event, yes, it could go one of two ways. Either you suppress it and you don't really remember any details, or it's just become such a prominent memory in your childhood. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Like, I think about like his feelings surrounding it, those moments, those whatever final moments with his mom, same with her, like it just shakes me to my core, like the whole circumstance and situation and everything surrounding it. So prayers up though. Certainly. I think we're done with quick hits. We're done with quick hits, and it actually, this particular story kind of brings us to our next topic.
But before we get to our next topic though, we have to talk about music.
We do. Let's end this particular segment. We still don't have a name
for this segment that we do.
What did I call it? I think I called it like Tunes of the Week.
I don't think I agreed to that. I think you suggested that and I rejected it promptly.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
If you guys have any ideas, feel free to send it in.
Yeah, but let us know what's your tune for the week.
I haven't thought about this much, but I will say one album. Oh no! This came out before the break. I was going to say I've been listening to the Kehlani. No, I've said it. I was going to say I've been listening to the Kehlani album quite a bit, but that came out, I think, towards the end of season 3.
Yeah, so I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, so I don't even actually think I have one. I will say for the past month-ish, I haven't really listened to new music, sadly.
Okay. I mean, I feel kind of similar. Yeah. But one of the songs that I recently discovered, it's probably not that new, but because I haven't been listening to music. Yeah. Is let me look up the name because I don't know it like that. Quintins by Masego.
I don't know it.
Oh, you don't know it? I really thought you were gonna tell me like, oh, this is so old. Yeah, I never knew about him. I don't really know him. But it's a song called Queen, as in like a queen. Teens, as in Jamaican teens. Yeah. His name is Masego. It's a really good song. You like it. Sounds like he's a really talented person. I heard of him on the BET Awards that I watched, and he was like performing.
Oh, you watched it?
I did. It was actually really well done. And I really liked his performance. I was like, what is this song? And I play like every day now.
I'm familiar with him, but I don't know that song. But I will say on the music tip, something that I really enjoyed that brought me a lot of joy was the Juneteenth Alicia Keys, John Legend battle. Yeah. That fulfilled me a lot. Okay. Musically. Yeah. So yeah, two artists I really love, especially Alicia Keys. If you do add like clips of a song, you can add the song Diary right here. That song filled me up a lot. Okay. But yeah.
Thank you for telling us that.
You're welcome. All right. So time for the main topic at hand.
So okay, I'm find out you can rap.
Like I mentioned during our quick hit segment, we're gonna have like a heavier topic, I guess, this episode, trailing off of the Naya Rivera story, and the fact that I mentioned her son is definitely gonna have some huge emotional trauma to deal with in years to come. We figured we would start this season off on the note of trauma and what it means specifically to us as Black African individuals in the diaspora. Yeah. And for me being a woman and for you being a man. And I guess we could start with trauma for me because the rest of the season hopefully will be much like lighter or on a more positive note. And the whole idea of wellness is like trying to maybe heal some traumas or, try and maybe avoid some traumas. So let's just start here. And the rest of the season, don't worry, won't be as sad.
Deep, no, I mean, certainly, like you said, if you're talking about wellness, you have to deal with some of the negative things that a lot of times when you think about wellness, you think about, I'm trying to get well from something. Right. It's not always the case, but a lot of times that's just how we think about it. So it's important that we talk about what are the kinds of things that we're trying to get well from. And a huge reason that we wanted to do wellness and this topic came up is because of what's going on outside. It might not seem like it's as much of it going on, but it's hasn't gone away. Like there's still protesting in whatever form. People are still angry about all those things because they have not been resolved, right?
I love that you said it's not going anywhere. It hasn't gone anywhere because it also never left. Like just because it had this huge upswing in the recent time doesn't mean it wasn't already here. So it's just something that's always kind of in in our psyche, in our like day to day, in our environment.
Yeah.
So it's something that definitely needs to be addressed. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of different places that we could start. But since we just talked about the Naya Rivera thing, I think probably start like on a more like personal note, just in terms of dealing with trauma as a person, the kinds of things that people deal with, right? Like we kind of talk about like in a household growing up, we all have different kinds of trauma.
Yeah.
Depending on who you are, something that's traumatic to you might not be traumatic to me, others, vice versa.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I think people downplay what trauma is to someone. But just dealing with that. So one of the things I did, because out here we have to do things, I went on Google and I said, Google, what is trauma? Because
he loves his definitions, guys.
It's so important to define things, because a lot of times we all think we're talking about the same thing, and whole time like you don't know what trauma is, or what I'm calling trauma, you're not calling trauma. Yeah. And trauma is a very vague word. So the definition I found, I don't know what dictionary, don't ask me, but it's a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Quite simple.
I like that.
And again,
it's vague enough that it could be subjective. Yeah.
Like what's disturbing to you might not be disturbing to me.
Exactly.
And vice versa. So one of the things I think is really interesting, being that we are African, I'll kind of start with that. I think there's a lot of trauma in African households, and it's sad that it exists, but what's more sad, I think, is the reaction to it. There's a lot of like, don't tell anyone. Don't say anything. We can't talk about this out loud.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to think of a reference, but I can't think of a good reference right now. But there's a lot of that happens in African households.
100,000 million%.
Yeah.
I think Africans are one of the least equipped people to deal with trauma because trauma doesn't exist.
Oh, I have a good reference. Yes.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I just love bringing up examples.
Yeah.
So, this reference, actually, it's a movie. It's not even African. It's Indian.
Yeah.
But it's on Amazon Prime. I forget what it's called. It's basically the name of the girl.
Okay.
But it's basically a story about this woman. She's a wife, and how she gets slapped by her husband.
Yeah.
Right? Like in a public, they're having a party at their house, and he like slaps her.
Yeah.
Just like he had never done anything to her, like anything resembling that, like just nothing. It was out the blue, completely out the blue. And it was just interesting because to her it was traumatic, and she was like, why would this ever happen to me? Wow, like, and she could not get over it.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because I thought the reaction of the families was very similar to like an African household where everyone was kind of like, oh, like you have to forgive him, and like, oh, like he doesn't even do this, like why are you so mad about this, like the mother figures are like, oh, we went through worse than this, like this is like, you don't speak about it, but like like this is, it's okay, like he doesn't beat you, like why are you so mad that he slaps you one time in front of everyone, like get over it. And I feel like that's very similar to what happened.
And it's fair enough that you brought up a point that's not necessarily African, but I feel like the African experience is very parallel to most immigrant or other
a lot of other
cultures experiences. So very valid in you bringing up that point. And I feel like the reason trauma doesn't exist is because, or obviously it exists, but it's treated as though it doesn't exist, is because so much that's done within the household period should not be spoken about outside, whether it's like a universally negative thing or not. So I say that to say, for instance, a lot of us were latchkey kids, I think is what the term is. I can't actually remember.
What is that?
That's basically, I think it's like an African experience, a Black experience, a white experience, a poor experience, whatever. It's just the kids that maybe don't have like round the clock childcare and supervision, right?
Yeah.
So between the hours you come back from school and the hour your mom gets home from work or your dad gets home from work, you're home alone. And in America, you're not supposed to be in a lot of cases. If you're like 7, that should not be the case. But a lot of us, that's just what the fact is,
it's expensive to get a babysitter.
It's expensive to get a babysitter. And another thing to bring up is that a lot of the trauma in the Black experience coming from single family or single parent households. So with that said, you have one parent that's supposed to do the job of 2, where 2 parents can barely do it. So imagine that. And so for instance, you've learned from like age 7, you don't tell anybody at school or anybody on the playground, anybody how life exists for you inside the house, right? And that might not be like enormously traumatic or enormously negative, but when you start off knowing not to talk about your life at home, period, to anybody at such a young age, when it is something negative where you do need to cry out for help, you just don't, because you don't know how to. You don't even know where to begin. That's something that's not taught to you. Whereas I think a lot of our white counterparts, they're told immediately from birth, from, age 3. If anybody looks at you this way, if anything happens, you always speak for yourself. You always tell it. You could tell mommy, you could tell daddy, tell your teeth. That's not how we're taught. You know what I mean? So trauma is something that we don't know how to speak about. Like, where do we even begin?
Yeah, because so I think a lot of our parents, they went through traumatic things, but they don't. The way they deal with it is by not saying anything and acting like it didn't happen. Unfortunately, so that's and it's just the way of the world. Like, we teach what we know. Exactly. We can only teach what we know. Like, I know, like, I got through it by not saying anything, so I can only tell you, don't say anything, and you get through it. And it's tough. I think it's starting to change, and a lot of our parents are like finding it hard to deal with. But it's not changed enough. But it's changing because we're here. And we're seeing how other people do it.
Well, I think a lot of our parents struggle with understanding, because for them, since they didn't talk about it, they had nobody to commiserate about it with. You know what I mean? My issues are my issues, and only I'm going through it, and nobody else understands it, right? So it becomes like, okay, this cycle of nobody gets it, so I'm not going to talk about it. So if I don't talk about it, I'm going to deal with it by myself. And it just becomes this festering negative thing going on in your life. And you pass that down onto your children. So when they are now starting to say, well, I'm going through this, it's like, well, shut up. Like, you don't need to talk about it, because nobody gets it anyway. You're not going to have anybody to talk about it with. So why even bring it up, period? Keep it in your brain. Don't talk to me about it. Don't talk to your friends about it. But once people start realizing, oh, I'm not alone. Like, my friend down the street goes through domestic abuse just like me. I have nothing to be ashamed about. Then it becomes something to talk about. A lot of this not talking about it is coming from shame, and then it's passed down and down. And you're like, if my kid is talking to me about her mental health issues from whatever, then I'm shameful of it for her, so she should feel shame for it. And then it becomes, again, a cycle of negativity and festering issues in the household, when a lot of it could be solved by talking about it with other people.
Certainly a lot of the solutions to a lot of traumatic things is to speak about it, because a lot of times it reduces the amount of power that event or that thing has over you. Right? Because when you speak about it, it's like, okay, like, it was bad, but you know what? Like you said, like, you're not alone. It's not something that you did. It's not your fault. Like, a lot of times when you're by yourself, you internalize it. It just goes all kinds of ways, that it's a lot better when you're able to speak about it to someone. And I think that, hopefully as we keep growing as a community and as individuals, we learn that and we are able to apply that more.
So with the female experience, I know a lot of our trauma stems from, things that happen at the hands of men. Okay? Like, whether it's sexual abuse, domestic abuse, all the abuses, right? And I think in the African household, the reason it's so prevalent is because a lot of us women are taught and we are raised to think that a lot of our value is by being a wife. So once you're no longer a wife, your value diminishes tenfold. Right? So how am I going to go talk about my husband being a problem and me going through this trauma at home? Because that will mean I most likely will no longer be a wife. And then what was all this for? And look at the shame I'm going to bring to my family. So the trauma is no longer my own trauma. It's trauma that I'm carrying for the entire family. So it's like, I think with African women, Black women, women of color, I know it's the same for white. I'm not going to say the white experience cannot at all compare. I'm not saying that at all, because I'm sure it happens there as well.
Whose alarm is that? That's Faye's alarm.
Is it mine? Oh shit, I was looking at you like, why is your alarm on?
So Faye set an alarm for the middle of our podcast. I
have no idea,
because this is what Faye does. This is how she comes prepared. Like, literally. Right?
Quarantine nap alarm.
This is when she wakes up, usually.
I am so confused. Okay, anyway. Let's hope that doesn't happen again. And I had a very good point I was making. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. So I'm not saying like the white experience cannot measure up. I'm just saying that I will say for my people and for me, I know growing up, a lot of my I wouldn't even say my parents don't raise me as though like my value is being a wife, but there's words or things or phrases like, oh, when you get to your husband's home, that make you think, okay, well, my value has to be there. Although they've never used those words or tried to make that ideology salient, it does feel like, well, if you're saying things like that, then I'm supposed to be achieving this great honor of being someone's wife. So if I do end up going through any trauma within that marital household, then I feel like I can't speak on it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think a lot of times just priorities are set wrong, right? Like, we've all seen the Nollywood movie of the wife goes to her mother's house. I say, my husband did this to me. My husband is doing this. And the mother's like, yes, going back to your house. You can't stay in my house. Go to your husband's house. Like that, unfortunately, happens. But, again, I think it's just something that we are, as a culture, learning to deal with better, hopefully. And the more we speak about it, the more we call it out, the better it'll be, because otherwise it's just going to stay at the status quo, which is not good enough. Do
you have any traumas specific to the Black African male perspective that you can think of?
For me, I can't think of one specific to like African male, but as a Black male in America, like of course there's so much trauma, right? There's trauma involved in, like, we kind of started off this topic with everything, the protests, so dealing with the police. There's a lot of trauma there, because even if we all have different kinds of experiences, but we all have some negative experiences. A lot of people have a lot more than me. I consider myself to literally have almost no negative experiences with the police. But I know so many people that have negative experiences with the police, and it's scary because when something is happening, who do you go to for help? Because like, you're traumatized from what you've experienced. Now you don't know what to do. Like, for example, yesterday, a friend basically was hearing like the neighbor or someone across the street like screaming out for help, right? But they just moved into the apartment complex or whatever, or the house, whatever it was. I don't know. I wasn't there. He told me after the fact. So they were like, okay, like, what do we do? Should we get involved? They're like, no, like, I don't want to get involved. I don't know what's on the other side of that door. Should I call the police? Calling the police is not the simplest of decisions, because it's like, if I call the police, like, what if I'm the person that looks crazy for calling? So but that's just trauma. That's like because of so many things we've seen. And unfortunately, like, to answer your question, as a Black male, it's not even just the things that you've actually experienced. We see so much on social media and the news of what's happened to other Black males that it becomes your experience. It becomes what you are afraid of, right? Like I said, I've never had a negative experience with the police. But if I'm driving at night and I see a police car in the back, I'm like, oh my God, please don't, like, I hope I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not doing anything illegal, but who knows, maybe I was speeding, but I don't even want to interact. I'm like praying that please just don't even, like, just keep driving. Don't interact with me, because I don't know who you are. I don't know what kind of day you're having. I don't know how this interaction is going to go.
Like, this would be the worst time for my tail light to be out or something. Like, just let this just go past. Let this go forward, and let this not be an issue today. I understand that. So like, outside of personal trauma, there is just like generational trauma, or like just trauma that comes from, like you mentioned, what you're seeing and what you're being exposed to on such a regular basis that you take that trauma on as your own, even if it's not a personal experience. So that even goes with me, like with the whole sexual abuse thing, like I mentioned, or domestic violence or any of that. I've never personally gone through it, but I've taken on that trauma as my own, because I know so many of my counterparts have, like my peers have. And you see people
that have, and there's no major difference. Like, it's not like, there's a lot of times, right? A lot of people can say like, a lot of people can say, oh, she was this, or he, like, but if we're being honest, like, you can see, and just like, that could happen to me in a, like, there's nothing that's keeping that from happening to me.
I was actually with a guy once, like, we were in a car, like, parked somewhere, like at a park or something like that, and later in the day, and I had told him, this person I trust, like, wholeheartedly, I didn't feel like I was at all in danger, but there was not, I cannot pretend like there was not a thought going through my brain that anything could happen. And I ended up telling him, because the conversation actually just ended up warranting it. I'm like, like, there's literally nothing that makes me any different from a girl who's in the same exact position with a guy in a car alone, and there's nothing like that person might have trusted said person just as much as I trust you. So it makes you think that, like, anything could happen to me at any time. And again, that's an experience of mine where it's like, I'm bringing in trauma from other experiences that have nothing to do with me.
And I do think it's important that people just realize that all the things that you watch, pay attention to, listen to, like, it all like we're saying, you take some of that on as your experience. Yeah. So even if you've never dealt with it, you just learn like, oh, okay, this is how it could be. And it matters. It really does matter. And you have to be very careful what you watch and listen to and pay attention to.
I will say that too, though. It's also a good thing, if you will, that we're being exposed, obviously to the extent that's to be discussed. But I think it's good that we're exposed to other people's traumas and issues and experiences because, like we mentioned, if it then happens to you, you know already that you're not alone. Yeah. You already know that, okay, this person has experienced it and this is or these are the steps that they've taken to kind of overcome it. Or, you know, they were just like me. They didn't do anything wrong. So I don't jump to the conclusion that I did something wrong. I was wearing the wrong thing. I was with the wrong person. I made the wrong decision. Like, it's like, it's about the person that did that to you, whatever that is. Yeah. That needs to be what's at the forefront of your brain. Not what did I do to allow myself to be a victim.
Yeah. I mean, it essentially allows us to not have to carry that by ourselves, right? That burden, that weight, whatever. It allows it to be like, hey, there's more people out there like you. And, you know, like basically what we said, it's not your fault. It's not an isolated thing because there rarely are isolated things
like you're not crazy for thinking the police officer is treating you different. You know, I feel like until recent time, if that trauma wasn't yours and you didn't experience it, you never saw it, and the media wasn't exposing it, you might have thought maybe I was doing the wrong thing. Because that's always
the first question anyway, right? Like anything that happens, it's always you look at the person, which we're all guilty of. And I don't think it's a bad thing, first of all. I think it's always good to look at every situation by itself before you add it to a whole list of things. It's like, hey, like, what is this? And actually on that note, there's been a couple of potential lynchings. I don't know if you've kind of been reading them. I haven't been paying too much attention because, again, I'm always wary of adding it to the list, and like it's just so much we don't know. Yeah. So there was recently a case, Robert Fuller in California. Yeah. He looked like he lynched himself. When it first happened, they said it was a suicide. People complained, were like, nah, like how can a black guy strung up on a tree like in the town center? How could you rule a suicide so quickly? Like, you need to investigate it. Investigation. So they investigated it, and I want to say within the last week, they basically said, like, yeah, it's a suicide. Like, he was suicidal. Like, you know, friends came out and said, like, this and that. But, of course, there's already a level of outrage. Yeah. And as much as it's easy to be like, yeah, you guys jumped the gun, it comes back to trauma, right? It comes back to, as black people, we've seen this too many times. And now we can't trust what you're telling us right off the bat. We can't trust that, hey, if there's someone hung up on a tree, they just killed themselves. Like, it's like, no. How did that happen? Like,
and for cases like that, for me, I'd rather be wrong than I guess right. You know what I mean? I'd rather it be like, okay, I thought this based off of whatever experiences I've had, and you prove me wrong, fine. Then just allow myself to take a blind eye to it and allow injustice to have taken place. Yeah. I for me, my ego can handle being wrong a few times than just allowing an injustice to fester and take place.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely agree with that. I think, you know, the key thing is they called for investigation. They didn't call for anything drastic, right? It's like, hey, we need to figure out what happened. Like, we're not saying this happened, but it looks too much like this based on our experience for us to just ignore the fact that it looks like it. I don't know if you paid attention to the NASCAR thing with Bubba Wallace. Yeah, like, same thing, right? Like, it was a rope that looked like how they do the ropes when they, like, look like a noose. And even though, like, it turned out, right, the investigation said, hey, it was just, like, it's literally been there for a year and they used it for the door. But it's better they investigate it. Yeah. And, you know, like, our president came out and, our presidents, let's not talk about him. But, like, you know, it's still, like, it's the trauma of black people. Like, you can't be mad at them because they've gone through traumatic events and experiences, and now they don't just trust anything, and they're not just going to ignore it and say, hey, it's just a rope. Keep going. It's life. It happens.
Yeah. And I don't know that we want to necessarily move away from the African or black experience, but I will say a collective trauma that we're all facing, if you're alive in 2020, is the trauma that Corona has brought us. Yeah. It's a trauma that we're never going to escape.
So this is where it comes down to what you call trauma, because I think that from my personal view, I don't know that it's been traumatic.
What was the definition again? Distressing or...
Deeply distressing or disturbing experience.
I would say it's disturbing for a lot of us. I wouldn't disagree with you. It disturbed your day-to-day life.
Definitely.
It disturbed your mental on some level. It actually did. Some capacity. I agree. Exactly. It doesn't always have to be distress. And the reason I know it's going to be ingrained in us for life is because there's no way we're not going to talk about it. Because think about how much the Great Depression comes up. Yeah. Like, think about how often we hear about the Great Depression.
Spanish flu. All that stuff.
And the reason I even say the Great Depression is because so many people are still alive today, whereas like with the Spanish flu, not as much. Yeah. So many people are alive today that went through the Great Depression and have such visceral reactions to anything that reminds them of it. Mm-hmm. So like, there's no way that you're going to look at a mask the same ever again. It just is what it is.
That's very true.
Even when it's unbiased, not unbiased, unconscious. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just going to happen. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we come forth as a unified front outside of Corona. Like, what we're going to do as a world, as a society.
You are right. It's definitely
what lessons this will teach us, what excessive trauma this might cause. Like, it might continue to cause more traumas down the line that we're not even aware.
I think that it will. I think that it will because it's so many reactionary things are going to happen. Yeah. The way we look at government, the healthcare system, the way decisions are made. I mean, literally everything has been affected by this. So exactly. I agree. Even though on the face of it, I'm like, oh, it's not traumatic, but it is traumatic as our community for us. Like, it certainly is. Like, it's affected everyone. Like you said, the way your life is affected. So, and a lot of people already said, like, it's never going to be the same. Like, we're not going to go back to how everything was. So,
and even if we go back to what, like, I don't know, 2015 looked like I said, there's going to be subconscious, like, nuances that so many of us face for the rest of our lives that we won't even realize. Like, the moment there's, like, something like the swine flu, which was not a huge pandemic, we're gonna all be like, yo, who's looking at that? Like, what is this again? Is this something again? Like, it's always gonna be ingrained in us.
Certainly, and I think it has the potential to change just the way people do things and live. But I think, just on trauma, to kind of wrap up, if you will. Sure. Everyone has traumatic experiences. Everyone goes through trauma. It's something that has happened in our past in whatever capacity. It's something that's going to happen again. Yeah. Right? You can't avoid trauma. You can't say, hey, I'm not going to have any traumatic things happen. You don't control it, right? It happens. So the most important thing is really just to identify it, to understand, like, you're never alone in whatever your trauma is. Like, there's someone else out there that has gone through it. And, like, it's not your fault. Like, stuff just happens. And you just have to learn how to deal with it, either as an individual, as a family, as a community, as a race, as whatever. Yeah. You always have to...
On that note, I want to say, like, don't minimize your trauma. Like we said, trauma is very subjective. Definitely. And maybe you grew up in a very tumultuous household in which that was your normal. That doesn't mean it doesn't have traumatic effects on your life. Yeah. So just because something has become normal to you, or you've normalized it, or you don't know anybody else that's going through it, so you don't know how traumatic it really should be to you, whatever the case, don't minimize it. If you feel like it has, like, downstream effects on your life, especially if it feels like it has downstream effects on your life, then it's probably a trauma that's worth addressing. Like, so definitely don't minimize your trauma. I think that's the one thing we want to say. Definitely. And also listen to our next 14 episodes or so where we talk about other things you can do outside of just thinking about your trauma and like confronting it. Other things you can do to promote wellness in your life.
Definitely. And I think I agree. Yeah, I agree. I was going to say something else, but I agree. You said it already.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. All right, that's it.
Boom, boom, boom. Shout out. Shall we do shout outs? Might as well do the shout outs now. Let's just do shout outs. Yeah? All right. Shout out time.
You really want a song so bad. Shout out might as well produce one. And stop this.
All right. So shout out time. I think we only have 2 shout outs. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. First shout out is to Michaela Coel. Yeah. Who, if you don't know who she is, shame on you. But she is, like, I think she came to fame for us on this side of the pond anyway, from Chewing Gum, the show on Netflix, which is hilarious.
I never watched it.
Oh, you never watched? I never finished it, but I watched the first couple episodes and it was just so funny. Like, I didn't think I would like it, but I know it was funny.
My friend, your sister, Doing, loves that show.
It's a good show. It's a very good show. She's also of Nigerian descent, by the way. Might as well throw it out there. Yeah. And I really just want to shout out because she's doing a lot of great things. She has a show on HBO called I May Destroy You, if I'm not mistaken. It's a really good show. Deals actually a lot with trauma, the traumatic experiences of her character and some other characters, and them just trying to cope and deal with it in different ways. Yeah. So it's very good. And yeah, just shout out to her because she's always doing things like for the culture.
She is.
Like, I want to say her last show she did, she was like Rwanda, now she's Ghanaian, and like I said, she's of Nigerian descent. So she's putting everyone on.
Doing
so I like
good
that.
Things out there.
Yeah. And the second shout out we have is to Ayooafrica. It's an online platform. They have a magazine. They're doing just so much stuff. It's hard for me to tell you. But check them out there on Instagram. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way, really. But they also have a website. Definitely check out their website. I said Instagram.
I was going to say, because their website has our stuff featured on it.
Yes. Yeah. Our podcast is featured on their website, which is a really good look. And it's nice to be on there. So, if you want to listen to our episodes or something, of course, if you're here, you already
or if you're just looking for other African-centric content and material, definitely visit their site. You'll find a ton of things for you guys.
They literally just found like the coolest people doing the coolest things. They're
like ourselves.
Of course. Oh, come on now. We're the coolest of the coolest.
Yeah.
And they put them on one website and said, check it out, Ayooafrica. So shout out to them, because it's always good when we promote ourselves and do things for our community, because a lot of times, like we talked about before, we wait for someone else to come tell us what we're doing is good, to validate us, and we can validate ourselves, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to tell the peoples?
Shout out to the fact that one lady, Epstein's confidant, I can't remember her name again.
Maxine something.
No, something Maxine or Maxwell or something. Something Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, right? I think that's what it is.
Yes. Ghislaine
Guys,
Maxwell.
We need to do better.
Yeah, I have it written down here.
But no, I'm happy that she's gotten rounded up, but there's a major but. She apparently has corona now, and if you know anything about the Epstein case, people disappear in odd ways.
Yeah.
People die in odd ways. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what comes of this situation. But either way, I am happy that there seems to be justice being served for some people that have gone through very traumatic experiences at the hands of these people.
Yeah.
We'll see how this kind of wraps up, though.
Yeah. Certainly interesting thing to keep your eye on. Just, pay attention to it, because it matters.
And that's all.
All right. Thank you for listening, guys.
See y'all next week.
Peace.